Have you ever lost anything because of a vice or of a demon? And I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about everything. For the people out there who lost everything because they couldn't control their demons, right? Their vices, alcohol, gambling, drugs, etc. I'm not judging you. We all got our vices. That's the truth. That's the truth. We all got our journey. But I want to talk about a specific type of vice in this video because I'm going to talk about what I know and what I have. I'm going to talk about things that I have experience with, facts and experience. And there's a specific type of vice, of demon, that in my perspective, in my opinion, I think is the worst of all of them, and that's lust. And not any type of lust. I'm talking the type of lust that makes you crave the whole process of conquer. Not just the crave of sex, not just the crave of intimacy, not just the crave of that physical interaction with a female. I'm talking about lust in a way of that whole process of conquering a woman. Oh, I have to get her. That type of lust that makes you see women as objects. You don't see them as human beings anymore. And not even in a fucked up way. You just see women as means to an end, as means to fill your ego, to make you feel powerful and special. Where did that where does that come from? Well, many things, but in my experience, I want to talk about me, right, in this video, and where did that comes from? Because that cost me two marriages already, mind you. So I lost more than a couple of things in my life because of my demons. Like I said, I don't judge anybody. I never been a drug addict. I never been an alcoholic. I never had troubles with gambling or any type of sort. And mind you, I haven't been a saint. I'm not saying that I never done those things, but I never had any type of vice. But there's only one thing that has been a consistent problem. Yeah, let's call it like it is. It's been a consistent problem in my life, in my 35 years old life. And that's lust. But it's more complicated than that because it's not just the fact that, oh, I just want to fuck a bunch of women. You know what I'm saying? It's complicated than that. And I'm going to try and explain it in this video. When I was younger, when I was a kid, I met my grandfather obviously since young age, but my father met my grandfather when he was 28 years old. Because he split up with my grandmother. My grandmother moved to United States. My grandfather stayed in Mexico. And, back then there was no internet. There was no WhatsApp, Facebook, or whatever. So they couldn't contact each other. And I'm pretty sure that my grandma was pissed at my grandfather because, he took his kids with her. And, for 28 years, my grandfather never knew about his kids until my dad met him, right? However, when I met my grandfather, it didn't took me a long time to find out that it was really different than my dad. And why is that? Well, my grandfather always had the fame, the reputation of being a great, great ladies man. And when I say ladies man, I do mean like fucking Mexican movie type shit. Guitar, romance, concrete. Like, he had a lot of game. A lot of game. Because I even remember him talking, right? Talking about stuff, talking about life, talking about music, talking about experiences. That old man had a lot of game. He had a way with words. He was not even the best good looking guy out there, but he had his charm, right? Really smart guy. And when he died, I remember when he died, everybody went to his funeral. He was really well respected. I haven't met anybody in my life that I said something negative or something bad about my grandfather, even though we all know that woman was his weakness. That's one thing that everybody knows. But nobody talks bad about him. Yeah, they say the common things like, oh, he was falling in love with every fucking girl out there back when he was young. Oh, he couldn't be faithful to your grandmother. Oh, he had a bunch of kids across the country. But nobody hated him. Nobody really disrespected him. Nobody really, even when he died, nobody really had something bad to say about him. All of his kids went to his funeral. My uncles, he had like, I think he has like six kids with different baby mothers. He even had, I got a Chinese uncle. I'm just gonna say that. Like, he even got a Chinese kid. So, and all of his kids went to see him to his funeral. I remember I saw 5 different women approach his coffin when he died. They were all sad. Nobody spit on his coffin. Nobody was fucking happy that he died. Nobody was, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody loved them. Everybody loved them. Not only just in death, but in life as well. And I remember that me in my childhood and my teenage years, I saw all this and I started relating that to his accolades. You know, it was funny, it was smart, it was a good man. You know, it was funny, it was loving, good grandfather, a good friend. He had a bunch of friends. So every time, but he had one thing in common. Everybody said something in common about him. He was a ladies' man. He loved women. He loved women. But I remember when I used to hear that, when I used to hear that about him. I remember that for me in my mind, that was a good thing. I was just, I was just assuming that that was a good thing. That was just, oh, that was a thing of my grandfather, kind of funny, right? I never knew that that was something negative about him. That was just like the way he was. That was something that was part of him, right? That was just part of his charm. And then when you see my father, all love to him, it was nothing like my grandfather. Nothing. And I saw a bunch of things of my dad. He was a good father, obviously. Really, really responsible man. Really excellent work ethic. But I saw a lot about things about him that I never wanted to be and I never wanted to have. And I tend to relate that to the fact that it was nothing like my grandfather. And one of those things where he was really faithful, right? He was faithful to my mom. He was not a ladies' man. He was not out there, He was a straight guy, a straight man, like as straight as an arrow. He went to work, came back home with his kids, his wife. Even though my mother wasn't the best woman out there, and I love her to death, but my mother is something else. And my father took a lot of shit from my mom until he couldn't anymore, and just they split up when I was 19 years old. But he took a lot from my mom until one day he just exploded and left the house. And I saw my father cry twice. One, when my grandfather died, and two, when he left the house. Because when he left the house, I remember I talked to him real quick, and I saw him in the eyes, and I was like, "Oh wow, so that's it? You're gonna leave?" And he looked at me. He looked me straight into my eyes, and he started crying. He started crying. He broke, and he told me, "Mijo, I cannot do this anymore. I'm miserable." And crying, miserable. And I remember when I saw that, I felt in my soul that I was never gonna be that guy. I would never wanted to be like that. Not because of the fact that he was quitting his family, because of the fact that he was a broken man. And he was a broken man for years. For years. It just took a lot because he wanted to be around his kids, us and my brothers. And he did a great job. He did an amazing job. He's one my father, bro. I have no complaints about him because as a dad, he did his job. He was there for me when I need a father the most. He was responsible. He was a good man. My father is a good man. So my father was a good man. No question about that. But when you compare that, in my perspective, between my grandfather and my dad, the guy that I really wanted to be like, maybe in my delusion, was my grandfather. Because there was more positive things in my perspective about my grandfather than my dad. And when I put everything in one picture, I was like, okay, what are the accolades? What are the accolades of my dad and my grandfather? What does my grandfather have that my dad don't? And the first thing that came to mind, my grandfather don't take shit from women. Wouldn't take shit from women. That's one. My grandfather was a ladies' man, so I guess that's what makes you a great man, right? That's what makes you respectable. Because obviously being faithful and being like a family man and being like straight as an arrow don't work because he breaks you, you know. You don't want to end up like that. That's what I used to tell myself. So the safest route will be like, your grandfather way. This all happened in my subconscious, right? As I grew up, as I grew up, I started to realize that avoiding serious relationships was way easier than committed emotion than to commit emotion in an intimate level with somebody, with a woman, obviously. Not that I never had any serious relationships, because deep down I knew that that was you were supposed to do that, right? When you fall in love with somebody, when you have feelings for somebody, well, you're supposed to give her some type of commitment, because that's what morally that's what they tell you to do, right? But I always had that need, that fucking need, or just go to the next thing, go to the next girl, and the next girl, and the next girl. Because if I felt that I was stuck with one girl, sexually, emotionally, psychologically, whatever you want to call it, I was kind of like a loser, you know? Oh, this is what my dad did, right? This is the way of my dad. That's not the way of my grandfather. And not to blame anything on my grandfather. I'm not saying that. But that's when it comes from, pretty much. Because all I wanted to do was feel pride about myself. I wanted to feel pride about myself, and I wasn't feeling that when I was in a committed relationship, when I was being faithful. Because every time I see a girl out there that I really like, it didn't stop in, oh damn, that's a beautiful girl. Because sometimes in life, all you have to do is just look at a girl and say, damn, that's a beautiful girl, and move on about your life. Well, not me. That wasn't the case with me. If I really see a girl that I liked, and if I feel that she was within my reach, relationship or not, I will get her. And that chase, that process between point A to point B of meeting a girl to point B, have her, like she was some type of fucking trophy or whatever, that type of high, that type of, I don't know how to explain it. That high, that pride, that adrenaline, I couldn't find it nowhere else. Not in sports, not in a single fucking drug, not in another type of game, nothing. Even to this day, that's something that I struggle a lot with. One of the things that I do, which I always tell my clients or tell anybody that I'm trying to give advice to on discipline, is, well, fitness helps you to cope with any type of vice you have. Because when it comes to fitness, when you're into self improvement, let's say you want to gain muscle mass, right? You got to commit to your meals, to your workouts, to not go out because you don't want to miss a meal, you don't want to miss a training, you got to go to sleep early. All of that process on self improvement when it comes to fitness keeps you away from bad habits. Well, that's gambling, alcohol, and even lust, right? Because you're not gonna put yourself in compromising situations. But even like that, I managed to control it most of the times. But it will always come. There will always be a time where it will beat me. Maybe that's the gym. Maybe that's at work. Somewhere, somehow, there will always be a girl that will spark that type of interest in me, and not the healthy interest. I'm gonna admit it. I'll be the first one to admit it. That's why I'm making this video. And I realized that when I grew older, that this is a problem. This is a problem, because back then I used to cope with the situation of, that's just part of being a man, bro. You know what I'm saying? I just can't pull bitches. You know, I just see a woman, I like her, women like me. Fuck it, that's just the way it is. Don't hate on me. That's how I used to cope with it. Just to justify my need of validation, because that's what makes me feel a man. That's what makes me feel like powerful, like capable. That's what makes me feel pride. You see how fucked up that sounds? Realistically and objectively. Because in that process, I'm not thinking about anyone or anything. If I have a relationship, like that cost me 2 marriages already. You can only imagine. Just like somebody when he's addicted to something, an alcoholic or a drug addict, they're not thinking about hurting the people that they love to. They're just thinking about the next high. They're just thinking about their own interests. The pursuit of that validation, the pursuit of that pleasure, the pursuit of that quick validation, that instant gratification is the same thing with lust. And it's not just the fact that, oh, I just need to go fuck this girl. You know what I'm saying? It's just the fucking chase. And the impact that he had in my psychology, in my mind, is something that till this day I struggle with a lot. There's a lot of things in life that makes me feel pride. There's a lot of things in life that brings me excitement and gives me peace. Again, fitness is one of them. The fact that I'm improving my body, the fact that I'm helping people, that's why I created my business. That's part of my purpose. The fact that I help people to change, to improve their mindset, their fitness, I see them changing. The fact that I can coach people when it comes to discipline, to their meals, to their workouts, that brings me joy, that brings me peace, that brings me excitement. My kids bring me a lot of peace. But that doesn't mean that that demon is still inside of me. And like I said at the beginning of this video, when you're an alcoholic or when you're a drug addict, I mean, drugs are not gonna call you at the middle of the night and just tempt you and just tell you the shit that you wanna hear. Alcohol is not gonna go and knock on your door and be like, "What's up?" You know? I mean, you gotta go and get it. But when you reach a certain level of fuckery when it comes to lust, that's a really deep hole to be in, and a few people will understand that. I hope that this video reach somebody who went through the same thing as me, because it's hard to find a support group that has this specific niche of vice, you know. Because it's not when I say lust, that I don't mean the type of lust that, oh, you just addicted to prostitutes, you just like to go and mess around with other women sexually. I'm talking about that type of lust that makes you feel like powerful, you know. You just want women to fall in love with you. You just want women to, you just want that control. That whenever you want, you can have that power over people. But those people are people. Women are people. And whenever you realize that, you start identifying why you behave the way you behave. And when you realize why you behave the way you behave, you're gonna find out that your bad habits or demons or vices are never gonna go away. You're just gonna be able to replace them. That's the only thing you can do. They will never go away. So the best thing to do is identify where they come from, know yourself, and then the way that you have to fight it is to replace it with other habits or other things, other dreams, other purpose, another sense of purpose that will fulfill that sense of conquer, that need of conquer that you have. And like I said, this video is talking to that specific type of man, that specific type of demon, lust, because it comes from that need of conquering. I know what you, I know you. I know what you feel. I know exactly what's your need in your heart, in your flesh. The only thing you can do is replace it, bro. It will never go away. You could be 80 years old and you will still feel like that. That's that's scary. But one thing you can do, and one thing that I invite all of you to do, is replace it. Replace it. Find something that will fill your heart with joy. Not just God. God is the answer, of course. Find something that makes you feel proud as a man, as a masculine man. Fitness, bodybuilding, powerlifting, fighting, something that makes you feel like a masculine man. Because a man who lacks purpose, A man who don't stand for anything will fall for anything.